A mind doesn't break. It gets abandoned, quietly, in small pieces, and not by anyone who meant to. What you're carrying isn't damage, it's vacancy, and vacancy has a repair. Over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to give you 15 habits that rebuild a mind from the floor up. None of them require motivation. All of them can be done badly. 2 of the 15 do most of the work, and one of those 2 is so small you'll assume I'm wasting your time until you've held it a week. Nobody is coming to do this for you. That is the bad news, and it's also the entire good news. Start with a house nobody has lived in for a year. The wiring is intact, the pipes are fine, but the air is stale. One window has swollen shut, and the garden has gone over completely. Stand in the doorway and it reads as a demolition job. It isn't a structural problem, it's an occupancy problem, and every month nobody lives there, the estimate gets worse. That is what burnout does. That is what the year after a collapse does, and what 3 gray years of nothing in particular do. The capacity is still in the building. What gets corrupted is the evidence your brain uses to estimate that capacity. Ask yourself tonight whether you could handle something real, a job that matters, a person who matters, and the answer comes back no. That no feels like a measurement.
It's a guess, calculated from a year of data in which you did almost nothing because you were waiting to feel able first. So the 15 habits are evidentiary. Each one files a piece of paper the estimate has to account for. This is why behavioral activation, one of the more reliably effective treatments for depression, runs in the opposite direction from common sense. It changes what a person does before it changes how they feel. Motivation is treated as a result rather than a prerequisite. And Daryl Bem's self-perception theory explains the mechanism plainly. People work out their own attitudes and states partly by watching their own behavior, the same way a stranger would. You are the stranger. You are standing in your own doorway making an estimate from the outside, and you have been feeding yourself terrible evidence. Action, then, is testimony. You are arguing with yourself using evidence instead of words, and in that argument, evidence always wins, which means you stop waiting to feel capable. You act first in units too small to argue with, and you let the estimate correct itself. The first 2 aren't psychological at all. Skip them and everything after fails quietly, and you'll blame yourself instead of the order. 1. Anchor the wake time, not the bedtime. It's 2:14 in the morning and you're awake, and you've already decided this means something.
That you're troubled, that something in you is wrong. Look at the week instead. You slept until 11 on Sunday, up at 7 on Monday, 1 in the afternoon on Saturday, curtains shut. You have been asking one body to live in 3 time zones, and the clock in your head gave up trying to guess which one you meant. The wake time is the lever, because morning light is the primary signal that sets the circadian clock. Light lands, the rhythm anchors, and sleep onset follows downstream on its own schedule. Set the wake time, and the bedtime arrives on its own within about 10 days. Set the bedtime, and you spend every night negotiating with a body that has not been told what hour it is. And if you think this is beneath you, Marcus Aurelius opens Book 5 of the Meditations talking himself out of bed. The most powerful man in the Roman world, lying there, negotiating. You're in reasonable company. Pick one wake time. Hold it 7 days a week, including the days you have nowhere to be. Get outside within an hour of it, even for 4 minutes, even in bad weather. 2. Walk every day with nothing in your ears. You already walk, but there's a podcast running, or music, or someone explaining discipline to you at 1.5 speed, so the walk isn't rest, it's another voice in an already crowded room. Take the headphones out and the first 10 minutes are genuinely unpleasant.
Everything you've been outrunning catches up and walks beside you at your exact pace. The unreturned message, the number in the account, the conversation you handled badly in March. Minute 11 is where the work happens. That's the part nobody stays for. A Stanford study led by Gregory Bratman, published in 2015, sent people on a 90-minute walk, half through a natural setting, half beside heavy traffic. The nature walkers came back with reduced rumination and reduced activity in a brain region tied to it. Same legs, same 90 minutes, different input. 20 minutes a day, nothing playing, trees if you have them, a quiet street if you don't. There's a reason people hold the wake time, take the walk, and still lose the whole day by 9 in the morning. It isn't the habits. It's who gets to speak first. 3. Don't let the world speak first. Your eyes open. Inside 90 seconds, you've absorbed a war, a stranger's promotion, and a weather warning for a region you don't live in. You have not yet had a single thought that belonged to you. Then you spend the rest of the day wondering why your mind feels like a hallway strangers keep walking through. There's a man who picks up the phone at 6:40 while the kettle is coming to the boil, kitchen lights still on because it's dark outside.
By 6:44, he is genuinely angry about something happening 3,000 miles away, involving people he will never meet, about which he can do precisely nothing. The kettle clicks off. He makes the coffee. He pours cereal into a bowl for his daughter, and at 7:15 she tells him something about a girl at school, and he answers with an edge in his voice that startles them both. He never once traces it back. He thinks he's just tired. He's carrying an emotion he picked up in a doorway and has been paying interest on ever since. The first 30 minutes are not for productivity. Nobody needs you to journal or plan or meditate at 6 in the morning. They're for establishing whose voice is running the day. Coffee, window, silence, shoes, whatever fills it, as long as it isn't a feed. Keep the phone out of the first 30 minutes. If that's impossible, make it 10, and defend the 10 like it's rent. 4. Restore 1 square meter of order before trying to fix your life. A woman is standing in her kitchen at 8 in the evening, still in the cardigan she wore to work. Her marriage is ending, and she can't stop that. Her contract runs out in April, and she can't control that. Her father is in a hospital 90 minutes north, and she can't fix that either. So she washes 4 dishes and wipes down the counter. Nothing about her situation has changed, and that is what makes it work.
It is a demonstration in physical space that her actions still alter reality. When a mind can't find proof of agency anywhere in its life, it will accept a clean sink as proof. It isn't fussy, it just needs something. Epictetus opens the Enchiridion with the division that runs under all of Stoicism. Some things are within our power, some are not, and nearly all suffering comes from confusing the two. Your square meter is the part within your power, made small enough to be undeniable. Not your whole flat. Pick the sink, or the desk drawer, or the passenger seat of the car that has held the same 3 coffee cups since February. Sovereignty scales upward from small territory. It never comes down from large intentions. The next 3 cost nothing, which is why almost nobody bothers with them. 1 takes 10 seconds and would have prevented most of the arguments you've had this year. 5. Name it in 1 word. Everything is falling apart gives you nothing to do on Tuesday morning. I'm ashamed about the call I didn't return is a street address. You can drive to an address, park outside it, and knock. Most emotional suffering lives in the vagueness of the emotion, the fog that could mean anything, so it means everything. Research led by Matthew Lieberman at UCLA, published in 2007, found that putting feelings into words
Affect labeling was associated with a reduced amygdala response to distressing images. Naming appears to be a form of regulation rather than mere description. The word does something to the thing it names. So when it hits, you get one word, not a paragraph. Ashamed, or envious, or lonely, or afraid about money. If you can't find the word, you don't yet have a problem. You have a fog, and the fog is the problem. 6. Run the nightly review like an auditor, not a prosecutor. Two people replay the same awkward meeting at midnight. Same footage, frame for frame. The first one asks what he did and what he'll do differently on Thursday. The second asks what's wrong with him. 10 minutes of thinking each, same room, same hour, and by Thursday one of them has a plan. 6 months later, they are not remotely the same person. Seneca describes doing this every night in On Anger. The lamp out, his wife gone quiet, running the whole day back. What fault did I cure today? What did I resist? What is better? Notice the register. It is a ledger. Auditors close the books and go to bed. 3 questions, 5 minutes, lights off. What did I do? What will I do differently? What was better than yesterday? No sentencing. 7. Put 10 seconds between the impression and the response.
The phone lights the ceiling at 11:40 at night. 3 words visible in the preview, no more. And your whole body has already reorganized around a message you haven't read. Jaw, shoulders, breath, the little drop behind the sternum. You're now composing a reply to a sentence that doesn't exist yet. Give it 10 seconds. Just lie there. The ceiling stays where it is. Your heart rate comes down a fraction, and then you turn the phone over and read the whole thing. It's about a dentist appointment. Somebody needs to move Thursday to Friday. That's the entire message. And what you notice, if you're paying attention, is that the fear you felt was complete before any information arrived. It was fully formed, physically real, and about nothing. 10 seconds cost you nothing and saved you a reply you'd have spent the next day explaining. Epictetus said we're disturbed not by things, but by our judgments about things. What's useful is the timing. The judgment arrives about 1 second behind the event and disguises itself as the event. It doesn't feel like an opinion. It feels like the news itself arriving. Treat the first 10 seconds after any impression as a place you're not permitted to speak from. No reply, no decision, no conclusion about your life. Breathe, count, and then respond as yourself instead of as the flinch. Everything so far has been about handling what you feel.
The next 2 are about what you say, and in both cases the damage is done by single words. 8. Delete always and never from your self-description. A man misses one training session on a Tuesday. Work ran late, the traffic was bad, his bag stayed in the car. Walking back into the house, he says out loud to nobody, "I always quit." The missed session cost him nothing. That sentence cost him the next 4 months. Always is a load-bearing lie. Pull it out and the whole conclusion comes down, because what's left standing is, "I missed Tuesday," and nobody has ever rebuilt an identity out of a missed Tuesday. Aaron Beck's cognitive therapy identified this family of distortions, overgeneralization, all-or-nothing thinking, as central drivers of depressive thought. Correcting them at the level of the sentence is standard practice, and it's done in words because words are where the damage is stored. Catch the absolutes as they leave your mouth. Say the corrected sentence out loud, in the smaller, duller, accurate version. It will feel pedantic. Do it anyway. 9. Rehearse the loss before it arrives. This is the one people argue with. Argue after you've tried it. A woman can't sleep for fear of losing her job. 6 weeks of it.
So one evening, she sits at the kitchen table and writes the whole thing out in boring administrative detail. The conversation itself, who's in the room, the last day, clearing the desk, the first Monday with no alarm, what's actually in the account, month 1, month 3, month 6, who she'd call, what work she'd take that she currently considers beneath her. She's no less likely to lose the job. She's simply no longer afraid of it, because it stopped being a shadow and became a logistics problem. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, and Seneca put the reason in one line in the letters. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Fear requires vagueness to survive. Specificity is the solvent. Once a week, take the thing you're dreading and write it out until it's tedious. When it's boring, it's finished. Now flip everything I've said so far. Because up to this point, you've been assuming the goal is to feel better, that if you hold the wake time and name the feeling and audit the day, some morning will arrive where the weight is off. Drop that. Feeling better is a side effect, and as a metric, it's useless, because it moves with sleep and blood sugar and who texted you back. It isn't what you're rebuilding. What you're rebuilding is your credibility with yourself. Think about who you're actually presenting the evidence to, not a doctor, not your family.
There's a part of you that has been keeping records for years. Every declared start, every abandoned Monday, every "this time will be different." And that part has quietly, sensibly, stopped believing a word you say. That is an accurate credit file, kept honestly, by someone who has been paying attention. And a mind that no longer trusts its own promises cannot be motivated by better promises, only by repayment, which changes what the remaining habits are for. 10. Lower the bar until it's insulting. A man has planned a 90-minute gym session every day for 6 weeks. He has completed none of them. Right now, he is standing in his hallway, holding one shoe, doing the arithmetic on whether there's any point starting at 8:40 at night, and the answer he reaches is no. He puts the shoe down. He has now failed 42 consecutive times at something he never once began. He is training an ignition, and he keeps flooding it. So the workout is not 40 minutes. The workout is putting on the shoes. Get to the front door, turn around, come back inside. You still won, because the mechanism you're repairing is the one that converts intention into movement, and that mechanism does not measure distance. Bluma Zygarnik found that unfinished tasks stay active in memory more than completed ones. Starting isn't half the work.
Starting changes what the task does to you while you're not doing it. Set the bar so low that failing it would be strange. 2 pages or 1 shoe, or the first paragraph. Then never break it. 11. Keep one promise to yourself every day, however small. Someone has said, "I'll start Monday," for 9 consecutive weeks. 9. The plan is always written on a Sunday evening, usually around 9 o'clock, usually in the Notes app, and it is always beautiful. Gym at 6, no phone until 8, emails cleared by 10, the difficult call made before lunch, and the whole thing rounded off with reading instead of scrolling. 7 items, sometimes 8. Every week, it collapses somewhere between the alarm at 6 and the second snooze at 6:18. And by Monday lunchtime, it isn't a failed plan anymore. It's just evidence, filed away with the other 8. The plan was never the problem. The problem is that 8 weeks of unpaid promises make the 9th one worthless the moment it's written. Self-trust behaves like a credit score. It's built by small, boring, on-time repayments, and it's destroyed by one spectacular default you swore would be different, which is why the enormous plan is the most expensive thing you can do to yourself right now. The stakes are too high, and you cannot afford another default.
Albert Bandura's work on self-efficacy names the source directly. Mastery experiences, the record of having actually done the thing, are the strongest driver of belief in your own capability, not encouragement and not affirmation in a mirror.
a record. One promise a day, made in the morning, small enough to survive a bad afternoon, and kept. Write it down when it's done. That is the interest payment on a mind you're buying back. Everything up to here you could do alone, in a flat, with the curtains closed, and never speak to a living person. That's exactly how this project dies. 12. Make contact before you feel like it. It starts with a castled birthday drinks, then a walk you moved to next week, and then didn't move again. A call you meant to return in the morning, and returned in your head instead, so thoroughly that you half believe you made it. 8 months of small, reasonable withdrawals, and by month 9, the invitations stop arriving, and you look at the evidence in front of you, an empty phone, a quiet Saturday, and you conclude, reasonably, that nobody wanted you there. You built that evidence, every piece of it. Withdrawal doesn't feel like a decision. That's what makes it dangerous. It feels like accuracy, like you're finally seeing clearly what you were too naive to see before.
Isolation is the one condition that writes its own prescription. It makes you want more of itself, and it dresses the wanting up as insight. Julianne Holt-Lundstad's meta-analytic work found weak social connection carries a mortality risk comparable in magnitude to well-established physical risk factors. One message a day, sent before you want to send it. Not a paragraph, not an apology for the silence, just the message. 13. Do one useful thing for another person daily. You're carrying a neighbor's shopping up 2 flights of stairs. She's 70-odd, and the bags are cutting into her hands, and it takes you 90 seconds, and you don't especially want to. Nothing about your own situation improves. The contract is still uncertain. The flat is still quiet. And yet, for the rest of that afternoon, a specific weight is missing. Not sadness, something narrower than that. The weight that whispers, you're a cost to everyone around you. Usefulness is the fastest available proof that you are not a burden. It doesn't argue with the thought. It makes the thought unsupportable for a few hours, and a few hours is more than any reassurance has ever bought you. Dunn, Acton, and Norton found in 2008 that people reported greater happiness from spending money on others than on themselves.
And Marcus Aurelius put the principle in one line in the Meditations. What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee. Do one small useful thing a day, especially on the days you feel least entitled to be useful to anyone. The last 2 protect the other 13. Get these wrong, and the rest quietly undoes itself while you sleep. 14. Stop introducing yourself as the damage. There's a man who has told the story of his divorce so many times he has memorized his own pauses. He knows which line gets the sympathy, he knows which one gets the laugh, and he waits for it. He can no longer tell whether he's still grieving or simply fluent. A story retold often enough stops being a memory and becomes a script. Then you stop reading from the script and start living inside it. Bem's principle again, running in the wrong direction. We read our own behavior as evidence about who we are, and speech is behavior. Every retelling is a vote cast for the version of you that ends there. You're not required to deny anything, just stop leading with it. The burnout, the breakdown, the year that took everything, it happened, it's true, and it does not need to be in the first 2 minutes of every conversation. Retire the damaged story from your own mouth for 90 days. Notice how often you reach for it and where. 15. Keep a proof file and measure in seasons. You only ever run the assessment on a bad night, which is the one night the sample is rigged. Work by Gordon Bower and others established what's called mood-congruent memory. A low mood makes low memories easier to retrieve. So you ask how the last month went, and your memory hands you the worst 4 evenings of it and calls that a summary. So don't consult your feelings. Consult a file. A cheap notebook, 1 line a day, 3 words maximum. Walked, called dad, up at 6, sent the message. No reflection, no paragraphs, nothing anyone could read as a diary. On the night your mind returns its verdict, that nothing has changed, that you're exactly where you were, you open the notebook and read 14 lines you have no memory of writing. And then the time scale. Nobody assesses a garden by standing in it and staring. You assess it in April against what it was in January. 90 days is the smallest honest unit of measurement for a mind, which means every judgment you've made about your progress at 2 in the morning has been made on the wrong instrument. 3 words a day, no grading yourself on any interval shorter than a season. I told you at the start that 2 of the 15 do most of the work. It's the first one and the 11th, the wake time and the daily kept promise. The 11th is the one I told you would look like I was wasting your time.
1 sentence a day, written down, kept by lunchtime. Hold it for a week before you decide. The wake time matters because a dysregulated body manufactures thoughts that arrive dressed as insight and are only fatigue. The 3 a.m. certainty that your life is a failure is not a conclusion, it's a symptom, and it evaporates by 10 in the morning if the morning is reliable. The kept promise matters because it repairs the thing all the others depend on. A mind that trusts itself will attempt the walk, the message, the square meter. A mind that doesn't will read all 13 remaining habits, agree with every word, and do none of them. That's why the reason to stay wasn't a technique, it was this. You have not been failing at these habits. You've been failing to be believed by yourself, and none of the 15 work until that's under repair. Start there tonight, and the others get easier in a way that will feel like luck. The rest is repetition, done badly, for longer than feels reasonable, and that's the part nobody warns you about. The repair is invisible while it's happening. There's no moment, nobody claps, no one notices, and there is no morning when you wake up repaired and know it. It arrives like this.
6 months from now, you're walking somewhere ordinary. A Tuesday, mid-afternoon, going to collect something you don't care about. And halfway down the street, you notice you weren't trading anything. Not because things resolved. They didn't. You simply weren't braced. That's the whole event. That's what 15 quiet habits buy you. And you don't need all 15 tonight. You need 1 before you sleep. And it should be the smallest one on this list. Because the small ones are the only ones that survive a bad week. And there will be a bad week. There will be several. 1 line in a notebook. 1 promise kept by 10 a.m. tomorrow. The alarm set for the same time as Monday. 1 more thing, said once. These habits rebuild the floor. And some people also need a doctor. Needing one is not a failed habit. It's the same evidence gathering, done with better instruments. So go back to the doorway of that house. Stale air, swollen window, garden gone to seed, and the estimate that this is a demolition job. Nothing about the building has to change tonight for the estimate to be wrong. Somebody just has to live there again. Badly. Starting with 1 room. Your mind was never broken. It was left. And it has been waiting the entire time for anyone at all to move back in. If you want this voice in the background of the next 90 days, stay. There's another one waiting. Sleep first.